you are. Well, good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. As town manager has dictated in the town charter at the select board's annual reorganization meeting, I'm tasked with calling the select board meeting to order prior to the election of the chair for the year. So good evening, everyone. Said a couple, just a reflection I wanted to read as we get started this evening. It was 2 years ago this week that our world quickly changed. The CDC declared COVID-19 a global pandemic, and Governor Scott declared a state of emergency. We had to change a lot in our town operations quickly to work in this new environment, and with the pandemic, that was an unknown. Everyone was faced with the same challenges. Our local schools, businesses, medical providers all had to find a way to operate in this new environment. It's not been an easy 2 years. We've been through multiple waves of infection and continue to learn more about COVID-19. We've been fortunate, excuse me, that modern medicine has been able to produce effective vaccines to help protect against COVID-19. The latest wave is waning, but it is generally understood now that COVID-19 will be an illness that stays with us. The world has lost over 6 million people to COVID-19. 608 of those people were from our state of Vermont. These numbers are hard to comprehend and are devastating to hear. COVID has affected us all. I've certainly learned a lot about myself and gained new perspective these last 2 years. A quote I like to share is from basketball coach Jim Valvano. He said, "Every single day, in every walk of life, ordinary people do extraordinary things." I think all of us can think of multiple friends, colleagues, neighbors, emergency responders, teachers, and frontline workers who have done extraordinary things to help our community the last 2 years. So thank you, everyone, for your help and dedication to helping others. I'm reflecting on this past week and appreciate the time this evening to share these reflections with the board and the community. Thank you. Next, first order of business, I'd like to call on nominations for the chair of the Williston Selectboard for this coming board year. I'll open the floor for nominations at this time.
I would nominate Terry McCaig.
Are there any other nominations? In that, I'll close nominations. Terry McCaig's been nominated to be chair of this Williston Select Board for the next year. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. It's my pleasure to pass the gavel to Chairman McCaig for another year.
That wasn't quite 15 minutes of fame.
So we started a new select board year, and the first thing on the agenda is to elect the vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
I'd move to nominate Ted Kenny. I'll second.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing no other nominations, then I'll close the nominations and call for a vote. All those in favor of electing Ted Kenny as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And no abstentions. So thank you very much. And as we begin this new select board year, thank you very much to the staff for all their hard work during the past select board year, especially getting the budget in order. And thanks to all of our citizens for voting and giving us the go ahead on the budget. So we're very much appreciative of that. Next thing on the agenda are the minutes of February 15th, 2022. Is there a motion?
Move we accept subject to modification.
Is there a second?
Second.
Page 1. Page 2. And page 3. Hearing no corrections, then all those in favor of approving the minutes of February 15th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Is there any abstentions? Hearing none, we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to make any public comment at this time? Anyone on Zoom who wishes to make any public comment at this time?
Yep, I've got a hand raised for Ron Bomer. Ron, I'm going to connect you just a moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I was just wanting to thank y'all for everything you do, but I wanted to mention a few things. I want to compliment Sarah Mason. She's probably one of the most helpful employees that, well, I don't know if she's even an employee, but representative of the town of Williston. She's helped me with a lot of things, and I just wanted to throw that out. The next issue I had was a disagreement with the budget. I know it's a little late, but I was wanting to point out that the starting salaries for police officers don't, and I'm coming from being a vocational rehab specialist, it's not a living wage. It's like $25 an hour or less that it turns out to. And I think we'd have better luck if we could raise that and attract better candidates. But I just wanted to mention that I would like for the union to be tougher and get more money out of this, because I think the police officers and the firefighters and teachers and the nurses, there's a lot of money on the table that I think we owe them. And then I also wanted to mention, I'm not in favor of dog parks, and until we get dogs under control. And then my wife is a cancer patient, and I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I really have and still appreciate the mask mandate and ask that continue. I don't trust the dropping of our guard that's happening. It looks like in 2 weeks we'll be visited by another version of Omicron. So that's all I wanted to do, and just thank you once again.
Good, thank you. Anyone else?
Pardon me. Will we need time to talk as each subject comes up, or is this the only time we're going to form?
Will we take each of the items on the agenda, or people will have an opportunity to make a comment? Sure.
Got one more person, Terry.
Okay.
And this is Patricia Peterson. We spoke on the phone earlier today, Patricia, and I see you, you told me you would call in. I see your phone here, so I'm going to connect you to speak with just a moment. Hi, Patricia, are you there?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yep, we can hear you.
us?
Oh, very, very good. Okay, hi, yes, my name is Patricia. My last name is Peterson, and I did write something and prepare something, and instead of speaking it over the phone, I'm going to post it on Front Porch Forum. But I would like to say that the reason I called in is regarding agenda item number 8 for tonight, and the notion of feedback, community groups to encourage feedback. I think it's very important. I think it's really important that everybody has the chance to share their view. Actually, the reason I chose to not share what I wrote for tonight was because it's basically me expressing my view. And, you know, that's great, but it's important to hear what everyone thinks in the community. And so I would like to thank the staff member. I don't really know who it was, but it
Are you still there, Patricia? May have froze on us, Scott.
Yep.
I'll just get it back here in just a moment. All right, I think we're back. Patricia, we just had a technical difficulty on our end here. Can you hear us? Patricia, are you still there on the phone?
Yes, I am.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Did you have, we got cut off there for a second. Did you have anything else to share?
No, that was it. I'll publish my thoughts on the forum, but I'm not sure how much everyone heard, but I think it's really important to keep conversations going and to have a lot of opportunities for residents to give feedback on any issue in Williston, but especially this issue. And the more that people can understand that their views will be heard and will be acknowledged, even if they're not popular or everyone doesn't agree with them, that we're all, we have respect for each other in this community, and divergent views are welcomed. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Nope, I'm not seeing anyone else there.
All right. Then we'll move on then to item number 5. That's the equalization report recommendation, redetermination. Eric, want to start off and then introduce Bill Hinman?
Yep, and Bill, I'm here getting you connected right now. So you might recall in this past January, the Select Board appealed the 2021 Equalization study, specifically the common level of appraisal, or CLA. It dipped just below the 85% threshold, which would be the threshold that requires the town prepare for a townwide reappraisal. The Property Valuation and Review section of the Vermont Department of Taxes has reviewed the town's appeal with staff and has offered to redetermine the CLA at 85.07%. You'll see with the agenda there's some documentation shared by the state, and should the board wish to accept that request, a motion would be in order to authorize the chair to sign this documentation. So we're getting Town Assessor Bill Hinman connected, and he can comment on this as well. Bill, looks like you're muted. I can't see you, but hopefully you can hear me. And if you could just unmute and share your video if you like.
There you go. You can hear me now, Eric?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. So as we spoke a couple months ago in regards to this equalization study, I had questions regarding the use of a couple of the sales and felt it necessary to appeal the study more over the fact that we were just below 85%, which would trigger a reappraisal. We did receive the notice, as Eric indicated, that they accepted our appeal and brought it up above 85%. This is, I mean, in effect, kicking the can down the road a little bit, but considering we just finished reappraisal in 16, I think it would have been a little premature to try and get something done the next year or two. This gives us another 2, possibly 3 years to implement a reappraisal. On a side note, I was talking to Corey Parent, state senator from Franklin County yesterday, and we had spoken about problems with the CLA statewide and reappraisals coming down the pike for most of the towns in the state. And at this point, Corey was indicating that the current $9 for property that we receive from the state to do maintenance and reappraisals is right now being looked at to increase to $12 or $13 per property, which may help offset the expense of towns that have to do a reappraisal so quickly after the last reappraisal.
Thank you, Bill. Any questions for Bill before I call for a motion?
Good.
I'd be looking for a motion then.
I'd move to accept the redetermination of equalized education property value and coefficient of dispersion as of April 1, 2021, as proposed by the state of Vermont in a letter dated March 4, 2022, and authorize the chair of the select board to sign the required documentation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We've done it. Thank you very much. That's good news to all of us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Moving on to the local emergency operations plan of 2022. Eric will introduce the subject, and then if Chief Collette would like to make a few comments.
Yep. So the local emergency operations plan is updated annually and shared for emergency response operations. We've distributed a copy of this year's plan. As Terry mentioned, I have Chief Collette on Zoom to answer any questions, and I can connect Chief here for a second if he wants to provide just a couple general comments here. Hold on a second, Chief. There we go. Hi, Chief.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Many thanks to Lisa Stedman for her work on this to update this plan for you tonight. Really, this plan is an ongoing working document, and this document that you see in front of you just is updated. So annually, we will go through all of the contacts and phone numbers, et cetera, on this document. And Lisa did a ton of work on that and really simple stuff that we would take for granted, such as not being able to just rely on a 7-digit phone number. So this document was updated to reflect all of those changes and any updated changes within businesses identified or partners in our emergency management plan. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but for the most part, it's a boilerplate document. It's been updated to reflect the current contact information.
Thank you, Chief. This is something that we've seen every year for a long number of years. Any questions from the members of the board? Can I be looking for a motion on this one as well?
I'll move to approve the 2022 local emergency operations plan as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of adopting the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and we're moving right along. Next is on the issue, on the agenda, is the issue of the face covering rule. And Eric, just you'd bring us up to date as to where we are and what we might do.
Sure. So I'll just recap as we have the last couple of discussions on this agenda item. On December 7th of last year, the Select Board adopted a face covering rule for indoor public spaces in response to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, under authority granted to local governing bodies as passed by the legislature in Act 1 and signed into law by Governor Scott. Act 1 dictates that should a municipal governing body enact a face covering rule, it's initially in effect for 45 days, and the governing body shall meet prior to the end of that period, vote either to repeal or extend it. Extensions of the rule are for 30-day increments and require the same process of reconsideration to occur prior to the end of any extension period. All local face covering rules will sunset on April 30th, 2022, in accordance with Act 1. The Select Board approved a 30-day extension of the rule through February 20th at its January 18th Select Board meeting, an extension through March 22nd at its February 15th meeting. I've included a copy of the current rule as adopted with the agenda. If the board wishes to make any amendments to the rule, if extended, these could also be considered for discussion this evening. So this evening, the Select Board is asked to consider whether it would wish to extend the face covering rule for an additional 30 days from March 22nd or repeal the rule. And I shared with the board, the Health Department updated its website on Monday, and Terry asked us to give a brief overview for folks watching at home as well. So I'm reading on healthvermont.gov/COVID-19/protect yourself and others section of the state website. So first is talking about get tested when needed. You can protect others by getting tested if you have COVID-19 symptoms or if you're a close contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19. You are not vaccinated or not up to date on your vaccines. Especially important to get tested if you're at higher risk for COVID-19, so you can reach out to your healthcare provider to ask about treatment. Stay home if sick. Whether you have symptoms of COVID-19, the flu, or another contagious illness, please stay home if you are sick and call your healthcare provider if needed. This help keeps germs from spreading, protects those who may be at risk of serious illness, and gives you a chance to get well. Masking and other precautions you can choose. As the level of severe disease is low in our communities, each person can decide if they want to take precautions based on their own personal level of risk. Decisions about additional precautions depend on your risk. Your decisions may be influenced by your age or health condition, if you're immunocompromised, you spend time with people at a higher risk or who are unvaccinated. These precautions may include wearing a mask, which helps protect you and the people around you from getting or spreading COVID-19. Examples of high-quality masks are N95 or KN95, which are very good at blocking droplets. You can also wear a well-fitting mask with at least 2 layers of tightly woven fabric or a layer of disposable mask under a cloth mask to increase effectiveness. There's some additional information, but that's kind of the main sections of the health department's website this week.
Good, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to make any comments on this issue? Tony? You can demask if you wish. Just identify yourself.
Thank you for allowing me the time. I spend an inordinate amount of time out in the public, not just here in Williston, but all over the state of Vermont. And I often engage in conversations with people, and the mask mandate is one of those things that comes up probably more often than anything else. The good news is the last week or so, with the schools relaxing the mask mandate, I've never seen so many smiles in the town of Williston in a long, long time. And I don't think there's anyone that could contest that that's a good thing. Public safety is at the forefront of everyone's mind, and I think we've done a great job with that. We sometimes don't agree, and that's okay. That's what public discourse is about. But we have reached a point when I go around now where there's a vast majority of people that are not wearing masks, whether they're shopping or they're employees in local stores or businesses. They've thrown in the towel, for lack of a better term to use. They're exhausted. It's not just about the few minutes that you have to wear a mask while you're going in to pick up a few items at the supermarket. It might be for that person that's there for 10 hours a day and has that mask on. It takes away a part of the personal interaction. They're worn down, they're tired. I've talked to employers that have lost employees because they're fed up with wearing a mask, and they're asking in some cases to be relocated to a store in another town if that's an option. The last time, there were some comments about it being the right thing to do. I think we have a lot of professional input at this point that are choosing to say, it's okay. It's your choice. If you look around, most people in here are not wearing a professional mask. Some people are wearing homemade masks. If you want to wear an N95 or something more important, great. If you want to stay home, great. But I really think that we've reached the point where the vast, vast majority of the people in this town would fully support the exercising and the ending of the mask mandate. And that's just not my personal input. I can tell you, I would love to see the mask mandate end as soon as possible. But again, if your goal is to represent your constituents, I can tell you right now, with no uncertainty and no hesitation, the vast members of this town would like to see the mask mandate go away.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone on Zoom who wishes to make comments?
See, I'll give a moment, Terry. If anyone on Zoom would like to make a comment on this, if you could raise a virtual hand or write to me in the chat. The chat just goes to me to let everybody know that. So just get a couple seconds here. I'm not seeing anyone else who would like to comment.
So I'd like to get the feeling of members of the board as to whether or not there's a solution to this by either eliminating it for as soon as possible or extending it.
My thought is that we should probably get rid of it as soon as possible. Schools are, and the CDC is not really recommending it for indoor stuff anymore the last I looked. And hopefully if infection rates go up even more, or go up, hopefully the legislature and the governor will either do the right thing statewide or give us the authority to do it again. But as it is now, I think, if we're following the science, I think we should get rid of it. Just my-
Other, thank you. Any other members? Ted, Jeff?
Well, I don't know if you remember, but last meeting I asked the question, last time we considered this, I asked the question of what's changed. And at that point, nothing had changed, at least in terms of the sources that I put a lot of faith into, which is CDC and the Department of Health. That is changing. I have to admit, I'm not a fan of repealing the rule. I worry that COVID is going to come back, and we need to be more diligent about what we do. But when the two sources, as I said, I trust, no longer are strongly or recommending we wear a mask indoors, I have to abide by that.
Thank you.
I'm an educator myself, and our school went with the option on Monday. I know Williston went last week. I know there's a lot of folks on both sides of this issue out in Williston, and I know we always took, as a board, I think, the first step for safety and followed guidelines that were around science-based and factual-based. But I do feel like it is time to go with some recommendations. That I'm with you, Jeff. I don't think we're really done, but I'm hopeful that we are making progress. And if something does spike, that there will be decisions at a higher level or give us that power back again to reinstitute if needed. But I would like to say that it's still an option for anyone who wants to wear a face covering. We're not saying that you can't. And in fact, I certainly would encourage folks that might have helped compromise people that they, visit or within their own house or themselves. I just think it's, if we're going to allow the schools to have an option, and we can't have a mixed message out in the town that we're mandating this, yet the public schools can do that option. So I would say I would end that. However, I'm cautiously saying that because I don't know what's on the horizon either.
Thank you.
I think I'm on the same page as everybody. I'm optimistic that, the trends that we're seeing in cases and hospitalizations. But data and is also saying that there are possible, that's not possible, that there are other strains out there that we may be affected by. And so, I do support ending the mask mandate now. I will say, though, based on what's happening in the schools right now, since the mask mandate ended in Williston, in my son's house alone, he has been a close contact 7 times in the past, 7 different children, and that's just in his house at school. So maybe it's 6 now that I say that, but multiple times in 1 week. So while I do support ending the mask mandate, I think that, we all need to individually take stock and make the choices for the health and safety of others as much as possible and continue that. And that may include mask wearing, but as a personal choice. So.
Thanks. I'll join the chorus and say, yes, it's time to repeal the mask mandate in Williston. All the towns around us have repealed theirs, and Williston cannot be an island to itself with the rule. COVID's not going to disappear. It will keep on coming back, just like the flu has since the Spanish flu arrived, and it'll be here. And hopefully there'll be vaccines that will combine both flu and COVID for the foreseeable future. So it looks like we are in agreement. We just need a motion, and in that motion, we would need to have an effective date as well.
I would move under the authority of Act 1 to repeal the town of Williston's face covering rule effective forthwith.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just that I got to use the word forthwith.
No, we're in board discussion and motion right now. We don't take any comments, but no discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we have passed the repeal of the mask mandate, and thanks to those of you who have spoken on both sides of the issue.
So you can take your mask off.
I think we're still covered in the building.
Are we?
Yeah.
I was wrong, I'm sorry. Is that right? It's up to the town manager. I guess.
If folks in the building want to remove their mask, it's okay.
Running a little bit ahead of time.
Terry, wait.
So, yes. Sure, if you would come to the microphone and identify yourself.
I'm Sharon Ranquin. This is the third time I've been here regarding mask mandates. I've always strongly encouraged that it stop. I'm thankful to the select board that you did today, repeal it, effective immediately. So I greatly appreciate that. Thank you and God bless. And I also agree, it's a choice. Those that want to continue wearing it, that's fine. And for the majority that don't, that's also fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is we're not quite ready with to start that discussion yet. Crystal Lee has a meeting that she expects to be done by 8 o'clock, so we can continue on the agenda with other things. Since the next thing we'll be looking at is the ARPA funds allocation process and a general overview with Eric and Shirley.
I'll just, I've got some slides prepared, so I'll get those queued up here. All right, there it goes. Make it bigger. Okay, so this evening, now we've finished the municipal budget. We've staff wanted to provide an overview of the board for the American Rescue Plan Act funding. You may recall we've gone through this a little bit during the FY23 budget process, and the board to allocate some of those initial funds. There's a number of other ARPA funds to look at, and it's a funding source which we're very fortunate to have. I'll never say never, but I think it would be highly unlikely that the town will get this type of federal aid again in likely our service here. So I think it's there's a lot of pieces of this for the select board to be thinking about over the next few months. And I'll emphasize throughout my comments tonight that there's time. There's time to make these decisions. It doesn't have to all be decided the next couple of months. And the board has a lot of different pieces to consider as part of this discussion. So one acronym, after talking with Shirley to kind of familiarize in our vernacular here that we'll probably see a lot of times in the coming months here because it's a reporting requirement. We're talking about the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. And I can't pronounce what the acronym is, so that's what I'm. So this is part of ARPA, and this is the arm of the ARPA funding designated by Congress in 2021 to assist local governments in responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency. So to recap where we are in Williston, we're receiving $3 million of this funding. $1.5 million we received in 2021, and the other $1.5 million will be receiving this for our full allocation. There's some deadlines set with this funding. The town has to decide how it wants to spend the funds by the end of 2024, and then all the funds have to be spent by the end of 2026. So in about 4.5 years from now, just over 4.5 years, all the funds would need to be expected. Just a reminder of the allocations that the board's identified to date during the budget process. $300,000 in general fund revenue for FY23, $187,000 for capital projects with a note if we're able to receive grant funding for any of those capital projects that would replace the use of the long acronym funding. About $130,000 for radios and turnout gear for the new fire staff, and about $55,000 towards community and country parks for ongoing project needs in the capital budget. This totals 670,000, and that leaves just over $2.3 million in ARPA funds that haven't been designated at this point. So you may recall in January, we received the final rule of how we can, how the town can use this funding from the U.S. Treasury Department that was tasked by Congress to come up with the rules for this and how to report on it. So you might remember we had different buckets we looked at initially. One was lost revenue, one was infrastructure, one was economic impacts. So the new rule says it's given a standard allowance of up to 10 million for each town. So that's to say any town that received under 10 million, it can all be classified towards its general government expenditures. So in speaking with VLCT, especially around this provides municipalities with the most flexibility that could be wished for with this funding. So that's good news. But it also makes the conversation more complicated, I'll say, because there are even more directions to think about here for the board moving ahead. So it's kind of just some general thoughts I had for the board to think about here. The select board is tasked with determining the vision and goals for the use of this funding, how to use them for the community, and what outcomes would the select board like to accomplish. The town and capital plans can be tools to assist in looking at some goals that have been looked at in the past and identified. Unlike a municipal budgeting process that we just finished, these allocations don't need to be determined all at once, just by the end of 2024. So they essentially are functioning as a reserve fund that must be spent by a certain date. This allows the decisions to be made incrementally and to consider holding some funds for forthcoming opportunities like future grant matches, reduction of future financing needs, potential operating revenue for overall general fund services to smooth potential tax impacts in future years, just to name a couple of general concepts. So I have a suggestion for the board to consider as we hold these discussions coming up this spring. This idea of 3 separate buckets for this funding. One bucket towards capital projects, one bucket towards advancing town goals, and the third bucket as kind of a subset of these aid funds as a reserve. And holding that reserve is just designating some funds to really decide on in the future. And there's if the board wants to move forward with this type of structure, these funds can get moved around. For example, if the board designates a certain amount of money for the reserve, the kind of let's wait and see parts of the fund, that could be transferred as we get further down the road here towards a capital project in the future, for example. But given where we are, we have the flexibility with this funding, and it provides some opportunity for that to think from a revenue standpoint and from an operational standpoint, some how the town and the board want to be strategic with some of these funds. And I will say at the staff level, we're continuing to look at the infrastructure funding that was passed by Congress earlier this year. We're still learning more about that and what some opportunities might be there as one example, as some things coming down the line here. And also waiting to learn from the state, as the states receive COVID funds, what other grant opportunities at the state level might be available and what local matches might be in line for those. So there's ways I feel to leverage this funding towards other funding sources to just be aware of, but we don't have all that information yet. It's still gonna roll out here. So I outlined just a starting point, a framework for a potential process to consider. This is a month with 5 Tuesdays, so if the board was interested in holding a special meeting on March 29th, staff's prepared to present some of these larger capital projects that have been in the capital plan for consideration for this funding, to dig into them a little bit more, look at their scope, and look at how these funds might be able to be used towards some of these larger scale projects. Could consider holding a public hearing then for some general feedback on this funding. Could provide me as manager, I'd look for direction on the vision and the priorities the board has for this funding. The board could consider initial designations for some of these short-term capital projects with a larger scope to begin. From that feedback, I could then transmit a draft vision and spending plan for your consideration and direction after that feedback. And if the board wanted to look at the 3-bucket model, that could be built into that piece. The board could consider initial plan adoption and a periodic reevaluation with a final plan for spending need to be completed by the end of 2024. And that deadline could encompass spent to date and future spending plans. So I'll stop there. I have going to just kind of have a high-level overview because there's a lot to unpack and think about with the board, and staff is looking for the board's direction and vision. It's not something you certainly don't need to have any direction like that this evening. It's looking to have this just initial overview and welcome the board's questions, thoughts, anything staff can do to help think through some of these big spending decisions in the months ahead. So I'll pause there for questions, discussion by the board.
Any comments or questions regarding the possible process that we're asked to look at? And is everybody available for a special meeting on the 29th of this month? Jeff?
Well, I won't be available on the 29th nor April the 5th. Sorry about that. I'll be traveling. I would very much like to participate in this. And then the only other thing I wanted to point out is I'm on the process to consider in the public hearing. I think it's critical. I think we need to hear from folks, what are their priorities, which could, range greatly from a specific project or type of project to, nope, only use it to lower taxes.
Sometimes it's easier to put something out to the public to see whether they have any
Absolutely, yep.
objections to it or support it. Other comments?
I am available on the 29th, so that works fine for me. And like Jeff, actually, that was my big note, actually, was, was getting community input. We hear a lot, anecdotally or about certain priorities from certain subsets. But definitely a forum to kind of, focus that in on what our community really sees as priorities and goals for our town as we, look at some of these bigger ideas.
Gordon?
As of now, I'm available. I don't know. Schedules do change. There's movement towards spring sports, and I help out with that at school, so to be determined for me.
I'm available on the 29th, and I'm a little low on my meeting quota for 2022, so I'd be here.
And I'm available. Also, questions, comments from the audience? Any questions or comments from anybody on Zoom?
I'll just give a moment here, Terry. Anyone on Zoom wish to comment on this? Nope, no comments on Zoom.
Okay. But we have 4 out of 5 that are available on the 29th. That would be, we would have town meeting TV broadcasting that as well.
Yeah, that would be my goal. I'd have to check with them for their availability, but yeah, certainly we'd look to set that up.
And that would give Jeff a chance to review what was said at that meeting, and then we can have further comments at another meeting after that. But you're going to be gone two meetings, so but this is something that will. It's not an emergency that we need to implement this right away, but we need to start working on it. Okay. Anything else on this tonight?
No, Shirley, did you have anything to add?
All right, then we'll move on to the Select Board rules of transaction and the meeting schedule.
Next sheet.
So Eric, you have made a modest modification of the rules of transaction that we've had for years.
Yep. The one change of note, we had some language in there about virtual meetings in last year's iteration of the rules. So I think it's section 5.2. I just updated that language to reflect offering a hybrid option when it's feasible moving forward. And it's the only change I've made in these draft rules that under consideration tonight. And I can speak about the schedule after the board. If there's no other discussion on the rules themselves, I'll pause there.
Any questions, comments regarding the rules of transaction? Then we can probably take care of the meeting schedule along with the rules of transaction in one motion. Eric has discovered a couple of things that we need to change on the schedule.
Yep. So it's always interesting how calendars line up. So traditionally the boards met once in the month of August during the year, and that's just been the third Tuesday. So this year the third Tuesday happens to be August 16th, which is Bennington Battle Day, and it's a town holiday. So for the board to think about a different Tuesday in August to meet. I put on my initial draft August the 9th, and then the town clerk reminded me that's primary election day. She did share that she has additional JP that could help with the election, but certainly with that going on, the board may not want to meet that evening. So August 23rd is also another possibility, but just kind of I'll look to the board to see when you'd like to meet in August.
The first change will be the November 1st meeting date instead of the 8th. And there's a second change I would suggest putting in as the meeting on the 29th of March at the very beginning. And the big question is then what do we do in place of the 9th, either the 2nd or the 23rd? Anything that comes to mind that's a favorable date for anybody here?
23rd.
23rd?
Yep.
23rd? 23rd, sounds like it's got the majority vote. So with those changes, I would be looking for a motion to adopt the Select Board Rules of Transaction and Schedule A as amended.
Move to adopt the Select Board Rules of Transaction and Meeting Schedule as amended dated March 15, 2022 for the term of the current Select Board ending in March 2022.
For a second.
Second.
For discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Then we're moving to the designation for examining and allowing claims the warrant.
So this is outlined in your rules of transaction, but typically the select board will designate one member and one alternate to sign warrants on behalf of the board during the year. Warrants will be made for informal review at regular board meetings and sent to the full board using email after signature by the board's designee. Got a resolution included with the agenda I can circulate this evening, just looking to see should the board like to establish this practice again, and which board member would it like to designate as its primary and an alternate as well.
My recollection is that the primary signer is Ted, and the secondary was Jeff.
That's fine.
Yeah.
If you're willing to do that, if the board is willing to accept that, that is fine. I guess we actually need a motion.
I move we designate Ed Kenny as the primary and Jeff Gears as the alternate to sign warrants on behalf of the board. Period.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, moving to liquor license applications and approval.
So another annual item at the March meeting for the select board. So you'll be acting as a liquor control board. Should you like to take up action this evening to consider a list of renewal applications for liquor licenses that included with the agenda for the new license term of May the 1st of 2022 to April the 30th of 2023. Since your agenda was transmitted on Friday, there were a few establishments that hadn't submitted their application. Please report those came in over the weekend to the town clerk. And you have an updated listing in front of you this evening with all of the license applicants. There's been no violations or concerns with any of these establishments in the past year.
So if we are going to approve this, we need two motions, one to approve them and one for to authorize the town clerk to sign them. So we don't have to sit here and sign them all like we've done in the past.
Could you remind me what is first versus second versus third?
I knew you were going to ask me, Jeff. Earlier, just bear with me a moment.
That's all right.
I can never remember.
I thought it was opposite what I thought it was. I thought like first class is just beer and wine, and third class is like hard alcohol, and you know, maybe it says more about me, but I think it should be the other way around.
Us beer drinkers are first.
It is, yeah, it is. So, yeah, first class is beer and wine, second class, or third class is hard alcohol. Second class is retail sales of.
Okay.
I had to research it. That's
Yep.
what I was spending my day doing.
I'm looking for two motions.
I'll move to approve the liquor license applications for the year beginning May 1st, 2022 and ending April 30th, 2023, as listed on the applications list dated March 15th, 2022. And I'll also move to authorize Town Clerk Sarah Mason to sign approved liquor license applications on behalf of the Select Board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? We're right in the middle of a motion, so after we, that, yes. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Tony?
Question one would be, does the town liquor control have the jurisdiction to decide whether there would be another, I guess it's third class, another liquor retail store in this town, or is that strictly done at the state level based on population, perhaps? I know like some towns have more than one and most have one.
I believe that's the Liquor Control Board that designates that.
That's at the state level,
Yeah.
okay. And just some personal input, I think that wine should be B class.
But you're not buying now.
No. Moving on to, I guess, manager's report at this point.
Yep, and I think Crystalline's wrapping up soon. I sent her a note, so
Oh.
she's not on yet, but we can
Okay.
hopefully our timing will work out here.
Okay.
So just a few items from my written report this evening. I haven't quite wrapped up getting the quarterly report together. I plan to get that done this evening. I'll have that out for the board this week. And the April 5th meeting, I'll also, I won't be in attendance for that meeting. I've asked HR coordinator, assistant to the manager, Erin Dickinson, to attend in my place. So get to meet Erin this evening. She's doing a great job for us. She's been here, I guess, over 3 months now already. So time flies. I want to recognize our police officers, Sabrina Booton and Kelsey Parker, who are attending the 113th Vermont Police Academy basic training class for police professionals. That's going to start next Monday at the academy. And I'll have some more updates on Chittenden County Public Safety Authority moving through the spring, but some good news to share. You might recall our CCPSA board is working to amass necessary capital, just over $2 million that would be required to get the dispatch center operational for the region. Part of this funding was Congressman Welch submitted an earmark for the recent spending bill, and we've learned that this earmark was included, and Congress passed that spending bill last week. $750,000 has been earmarked for CCPSA in that spending bill. So it's good news for CCPSA. We're continuing to meet as a board and look at trying to fill that funding gap. So I hope to bring back to the select board some additional updates on that this spring. And we had a project going on Oak Hill Road last week. You may have seen the equipment right near the four corners here, but that was a project for stream bank repair along with some sewer system protection there that Town Public Works Department was overseeing with Munson Earth Moving as the contractor.
And it's just interesting. What was the sewer protection? And then the other piece of it is that mixing a town public works project with the enterprise fund sewer, whatever, sewer, do you get my point?
Sure. Yeah, we used, I misspoke there. It was a sewer and a stormwater project. Each had a part of the funding there. And I can send along the full breakdown to.
Okay, and I'm just wondering, do we have to worry at all about, one is general town, and then two of those are the enterprise funds, the stormwater and the sewer. And I'm just wondering if you have to handle them somewhat, I don't know, accounting, is there an accounting issue, I guess is the way to put that?
We do, Jeff. We split the cost between, based on the funding between stormwater and sewer. So none of this actually is in the general fund budget, just the.
Okay, all right, good, thanks.
And we do actually have a grant for part of the work as well.
Okay. Good, thank you.
And I skipped over you, Shirley, but we have the finance report if you'd like to give your finance report summary as well. Nope, still waiting for her.
Not many changes from the last time. So I'm just gonna talk about the bigger changes. So when you look at the expenditures, police look like they're under budget at 50%, but really the majority of that is because passive is now billing us annually for our insurance, both property and casualty insurance and workers' comp. So there's only a quarter of it billed so far, and where normally at this time we would have 100% billed. The town manager's budget is only at 26%, but when we put the budget together, we had the HR coordinator assistant to the town manager position in the budget as assistant to the town manager. So it's sitting 100% in the town manager's budget. We're actually splitting it 50-50 when we put the job together and we split the position. We're splitting the wages 50-50. So that helps Bear's budget look a little bit better. Stormwater, their outside services, they have, I don't know if you remember, we have the Blue Williston program that we're using a consultant to help individual residents, and nothing has happened with that program yet this year, but we saw more activity in the spring last year, so I would imagine we'll see that pick up. Water maintenance is currently at 25% of budget, but that's mostly hydrant maintenance work, which we'll see more of in the spring. And at this point, there's been no costly water breaks this winter, and that has had an impact, so keep your fingers crossed there. And same thing for water and sewer outside services. We have the same issue with the passive insurance not being billed. And that, folks, are the big changes.
Okay.
All right, questions for Shirley?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Crystal B yet available?
Not yet, Terry.
Not yet.
We can go
Got a
to other
couple of
business if you like, and
Items under other business we can take care of. Catering permit, you have?
yep, I've got, I think, our first catering permit of the new calendar year here. It is from Vevo Catering. It's on 787 Bradley Lane, the Yandow's Sugar House there. It's on March the 26th from 11 to 4, and they're having a maple open house there. They're going to offer maple-inspired cocktails for cash from 12 to 4. There's a tent set up on the property for guests. I checked with Chief Foley and Planning and Zoning. No no concerns with this request. Should the board wish to grant this catering permit.
Any questions for Eric? Might be looking for a motion to approve.
Move we approve?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Shirley, you have something to talk about?
I've got it, true. This is, you'll remember when I start talking about it. This is a change of authorized representative for our drinking water state revolving fund. This would be, the select board has to allow Shirley to act as an authorized representative for the purpose of furnishing the state of Vermont with information, data, and documents concerning our projects we have that are financed through that fund. So we would look for a motion to authorize Shirley as the board to take out those actions on the town's behalf.
Any
Essentially,
questions?
it allowed me to send a reimbursement into the state.
Any questions for Shirley on this?
No, just a comment. I'm going to abstain from this because that's one of the programs the team I work with supports.
Any other questions for Shirley? We need a motion then.
So move.
Second.
We have motion made and seconded to appoint Shirley. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed and abstentions? This is Jeff. Any other business at this moment? We can come back to it if we need to, but is there any other business to talk about at this moment?
I just have a question.
Yep.
So in this little lull we had, I went and cleaned out my select board files.
Uh-oh.
And Eric received some of the benefits, the right word, but the results of that already. But it turned out that we now have an energy and community planner, but we also have a position called the energy coordinator.
A
And I
volunteer.
wanted to
A
try.
volunteer.
What's that?
A volunteer.
A volunteer,
Yeah.
right. But I wanted to make sure I kind of understood what is the role of the energy coordinator now that we have an energy committee and an energy planner. And you know, maybe that's not I just, as I had these two things, I was going, well, I should ask.
I can speak to that.
Sure.
So that's been something on my list to review as well. You know, appreciate Brian Forrest's service as our energy
Right.
coordinator these last couple of years, and looking with having a staff position to take over those duties. I was planning to have a conversation with Brian to see what his thoughts were there, and I could bring that feedback to the board when you look at reappointments coming up for the coming year, whether that's a volunteer position that may or may not be a volunteer role that the town would need to fill at this time.
Yeah, you know, Brian's great. He's very passionate. He is very persistent, might be a good word, which is good. So I don't want to thwart the good work he's doing, just again, trying to understand.
Wasn't that a state statute that made us appoint that position?
It was as I recall, it was a position that the board has the authority to appoint under state statute, but it's not a required state statute position. I remember things like fence viewer, layer of coal that also have that type of discretion that the town took out of the charter a number of years ago.
I miss those.
Me too.
Yeah,
I do.
the way of poll. Wasn't there a fence viewer?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was the elected town agent for Richmond for a long time.
Town agent.
Town agent. I thought,
Is that a little bit like the authorized representative?
you receive the legal papers when this town gets sued, which I never did. Nobody ever knocked on my office door when it was in Richmond, but I was hoping it'd be more like a, kind of a James Bond type.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have run for it.
So you didn't get the car and the watch and the.
No.
Yes.
What's that?
Yeah. License.
No license.
How are we doing with Crystal Lee?
She told me she should be along in just a minute or so. I can start.
Okay,
If you
then
like. I know
let's
she'll
go
be
over
along.
to the visual representation of community values. And Eric will lead off.
So I'll have Crystal Lee, our CJC director, will be along. And oh, you know what? She just logged in, so perfect time.
All right.
Let's give her a moment here. Good timing, Crystal Lee. We just started. I was just starting my introduction, so. Crystal Lee is joining us now, our CJC executive director. The select board at its June 15th, 2021 meeting passed a motion to continue to fly the Black Lives Matter flag at Town Hall for 9 months and revisit the conversation at that time. Per the motion, this discussion's been placed on the agenda to revisit the conversation as 9 months have passed since that original motion was adopted. So, this evening, staff's identified a possible pathway for the select board to consider, outlined in a memo included with the agenda. Crystal Lee and I can speak to that here as the board wants to consider this. So Crystal Lee and I spoke last week, and this pathway is to engage the community in conversation about the values of Williston and identify possible approaches to articulate and reflect those values visually, inclusive of speaking out against racism in the community. These conversations could take place over the coming 2 months this spring, and the goal will be to have a summary report compiled and transmitted to the select board for review. In the interim, this could pause the conversation on the Black Lives Matter flag and allow deeper community engagement to occur on a values-based discussion basis. And once this work's completed, the select board could take the report under advisement in discussion on policy direction moving forward. This could include whether the Black Lives Matter flag continues to fly at Town Hall and or if there's another preferred alternative and visual message reflective of the town's values to pursue inclusive speaking out against racism. So I'll turn over to Crystal Lee if you have anything to add on our overview, Crystal Lee.
Thank you. Good evening. So I am here just to also just share some support for engaging our community in these types of conversations, and really hoping that we can be reflective of more thoughts and considerations from all various experiences and opinions in our community, so that we are best representing the ways in which our community can and wants to engage in anti-racism work. Certainly the flag is an important message, and we've heard from businesses and from individuals that they would be interested in further dialogue around some creative conversations and solutions. And so this was an effort to try and engage the community in dialogue and in conversations, and to find a pathway forward that can be reflective of the town values and what the citizens of Williston are hoping to bring forward.
So questions or comments regarding the issue?
My one question is, so, we agreed to the 9 months, and then we're going to go through, I'm hoping I fully support, this engaging the public in the discussion and kind of opening dialogue, but we will continue to fly the Black Lives Matter flag. I'm hoping then, through that process.
Yeah,
that is our hope.
Okay.
Yeah, and you have a draft motion, and the words in that motion could reflect that. Try to capture that.
Yep.
Jeff?
So Crystal Lee, hi, Jeff here. The goals or what you're outlining as what you hope to accomplish are great, 100% behind them. It's the how that I'm most interested. Given that, it's the how that I'm now interested. How do you propose to do this? Because I think that's a really tough. To get true community engagement in this process, which would be wonderful, but it's also incredibly difficult to do. I suspect it's going to be very difficult to do. So I'm curious in the how.
Yeah, thank you. So my vision of how to make this happen is to open it up to the community and have facilitated conversations with using a restorative model where we're really talking about the issue. What are the values? What do people care about? What are some creative responses and solutions? But also hearing from those who might not be in support, because their voice also does need to have importance placed on it and be part of the conversation and reflection of who and what is in our community and where are we. And so I think by invitation to all members of our community through facilitated conversations that are without blame or shame or without judgment or bias, but to really just give people that opportunity to be heard in a way that can really reflect the truth of where people are sitting, either in support of or in opposition or in another realm of maybe these other creative models. We know, in efforts that we've taken already that citizens do have a lot to say. Will it be hard? Yes. Will it take time? Yes. That's why we're asking for a few months. But I think that there will be opportunities that we can create where we could have, small group discussion, provide a virtual option for COVID safety. And it's an opportunity for us to glean really, the voices in our community and come back to all of you with those reports. So it's not just to have the conversation for someone to say, yes, I support this. It's also for us to really hear and glean as a community, the various voices, that we share community with.
Could you give some examples of what you, like how a facilitated discussion might be carried out? Everything from advertise, who might you, when I say target, that's not really the word I'm looking for, but, when you're casting your net out, that type of thing. And then the last part of that is, would it be appropriate for a select board meeting to be a piece of that facilitated discussion?
Great questions. So I think, really reaching the citizens of Williston, we would use every platform that we could. We would want to put something out, I would believe on the town website, on the CJC websites, ask, at the library, ask other stakeholders in the community to support just kind of the advertising of that, maybe utilize Front Porch Forum, utilize the Observer so that people in Williston really know, and then make those concentrated efforts to reach some of the parts of Williston that we know might not always be, engaged in some of the same ways that other folks are. Maybe asking the schools to support it's something in their school news so that parents can see that. And then thinking in terms of a place in the community where we could hold these facilitated conversations. Again, one idea I had was to see if we could utilize the school in classrooms so that it's a small group, and the facilitated conversations would be each facilitator would be asking the same questions in each group and collecting that information using various various Post-it notes and things on the walls so that we can move things around and really give people the opportunity to engage with one another, and then taking the opportunity to glean all of that information to then have a second round and then a third round. So really giving the opportunity for maybe 3 or 4 rounds of this to happen so that folks might not have the comfort level in the beginning, but maybe we'll start to build some of that comfort. So that's what I'm envisioning. We certainly have done this with other sensitive issues, and it's worked really well through the CJC. And I think that we have, really professional facilitators who can take on that role of those conversations. And then your question about, kind of select board meeting, kind of be a place to have this happen as well. I would point that back to all of you and ask that question. Is that something that you would want? And is that, something that's interested to have happen?
Thank you.
Of course.
Other questions for members of the audience?
Hi, I'm Sharon Ray Quinn again, and my opinion on the Black Lives Matter flag is it's been flying for 9 months. I would like to have it removed personally. I think that all lives matter. I think that there are some members who protest peacefully. However, I think there are many more that have created violence, chaos, set fires, destroyed businesses, not just in America, but throughout the world. I mean, Portland just went on and on and on. It's just so sad, in my humble opinion. I would like to see a POW flag flown here. I wholeheartedly support the brave men and women in the armed forces and the National Guard. They put their lives on the line for us every day. Right now, they're in some precarious places in the world. And that's my opinion, so I hope that you consider it as this moves forward. I also have personally and would like to take a moment to publicly thank Chief of Police Foley and his officers for the amazing job that they do in our town and village. They're short-staffed, and I think they deserve some recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on Zoom who wishes to make any comments?
I've got a hand raised on the phone. I believe that was Patricia. Patricia, I'm going to connect you.
Yes, hello. Can I be heard?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Okay, hello. So my name is Patricia Peterson, and I'm going to just share something. I don't have anything prepared, so I'm just going to share. I have a thought about a way of visual representation. You know, one of my, I'm aware that I've been taught that Black folks they experience more generational poverty and may be living on literally 10% of maybe what other people are earning. And so poverty is real. And so I was thinking about, I had spoken earlier today with the town manager, and it looks like in part of the budget, there's $800 for, I don't have my notes in front of me, but you know, there's this wiggle room money. So I had a thought that we could order specifically from a Black-owned business, a Black-owned maybe emergent business, say for example, like the coffee supplies. And if we paid a little bit extra to build a relationship with a developing coffee shop, not necessarily in Vermont, but maybe in a community where a lot of people are living at or near the poverty line. And we created a relationship, a business relationship with different businesses, not just one business, and kind of had a variety and stuff. But, and then we could put out a press release that we're doing this. We could have a visual display at the town hall. There could be a group of community members who could choose so that the, choose the products and stuff so that the town staff doesn't have to work more. There's a lot of ways that we can show appreciation or a sense of inclusion for people who are of different backgrounds, you know, different levels of melanin in their skin. In addition, or instead of, it doesn't really have anything to do with the Black Lives Matter flag, because it would be more of a true gesture of using some of the resources from the town to try out something and I don't know, just I feel that that's more concrete. So I just wanted to share that as my contribution for tonight. I think we can make visible the use of products created by businesses, run by people at or near the poverty line who are BIPOC, I guess. So that's what I want to share. Thank you.
Good. Anyone else on Zoom?
Let's see. Cindy Provost. Cindy, I'm going to connect you to talk.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Thank you. I would have to chime in with what Sharon mentioned as far as the Black Lives Matter flag being removed as well. It's been up longer than it was supposed to be. And there are other ties to that flag that are not, I hope, reminiscent of what people in the town believe in or would want to believe in. I think a lot of, I go back to when my kids were in school in Williston. Black kids, white kids didn't matter. No one thought anything of it. As well as parents, had friends. I do have friends that are, and no one thinks anything of it. They don't make an issuance of it. Everyone's the same. And this whole thing where it has to be so specific. It's no different than calling out people in school, you know, with race theory and stuff like that. And that's definitely happening. I witnessed it at my daughter's graduation 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It was ridiculous that there had to be mention of specific colors. We're all the same. And there never used to be this issue when my kids were growing up. Everyone treated everyone the same. It wasn't even questioned. It wasn't mentioned. It didn't have to be. And because it's mentioned so much now, it becomes an issue. And that's how I feel. And I see it every day. And it doesn't have to be this black and white issue. It just makes it more of a problem. And I think that the American flag is flown in this country for a reason. It embodies everybody in this country. Everyone has the same rights, freedoms, opportunities, period. That flag should not be there. Our flag, the American flag, is what this country stands for everybody in it. And it doesn't have to be specifying and pulling other people out just because they're different in a different color or religion, whatever it may be. It's just making things more of an issue. And that's how I feel. And I feel it's valid. I think it's factual. And I think something needs to be done about making all these issues such big issues when they're really not. And they don't have to be if people just embody it in a different way. So that's what I have to say. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Any other comments from the Zoom audience?
Nope, no other comments there.
I think we're at the point that if we agree with Eric and Crystal Lee to go forward, then there is a motion suggested.
Move to direct the town manager to work with the Community Justice Center to facilitate community conversations centered on Williston's shared values and how to communicate these values, and deliver a report summarizing the primary themes from the conversations and opinions identified of how to reflect Williston's values visually, inclusive of speaking out against racism. Further move to continue flying the Black Lives Matter flag at Town Hall. Oh, sorry, no, strike that. Further move to reconsider the flying of the Black Lives Matter flag at Town Hall when the report is completed on the outcomes of these conversations by the town manager so that it may be taken under advisement during further discussion. I made that up just as I was.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion on the motion?
So does that mean the flag is staying up or coming down until the outcomes of the conversations?
Staying up.
Okay, all right. I'm in favor of the motion. I hear what people are saying. I I was the one who made the motion to put the flag up and the one who made the motion to have it continue being flown. And this is such a third rail these days in our society that it's hard to even talk about it ever. So I'm glad that the conversations are going to happen. I do, particularly because in my view, and this is just my view, we're all so polarized that we all talk past each other. I mean, I somebody recently, when we had this debate the first time, somebody was very offended, and I knew who it was, and he was wasn't a professional. He was a guy who worked with his hands. And somebody said something about white privilege, and he said, "What privilege? I'm white. And what privilege? My hands are." He didn't say calloused, but he said, "I work with my hands. I work hard. I don't have any money. I don't know what that's talking about." But I know what the term means. But I don't think that's how it's taken. And the thing that concerns me is, I was a trial lawyer for a long time. And the phrase that I always used to think of is, and a lot of people think that means that you're manipulative, but if you're a good one, it means you're actually not. And hopefully I was good. But you go to the jury where you find them. You got to go to them. And you got to go to the public where the public is. And what I get concerned about is that we all stay in our little circles and we only talk to people who agree with us, and we don't have the conversation that we need to have. And so we use phrases that the other side doesn't mean. One side says white privilege, the other side says, well, all lives matter. And meanwhile, well, no, black lives matter. Well, it's all skew lines oftentimes. And so I think everybody is very well intentioned, but I'm really glad that these conversations are going to happen. Krista Lee, I got to tell you, it's going to be hard. I salute you for it. But I think these conversations have to happen. I myself was thinking recently, as everybody knows, my daughters are Chinese, they're adopted. I was noting yesterday in New York City, a man attacked an Asian woman and hit her 125 times. They could count because it was on camera. And charged and broke her face, and there's brain bleed, and he's charged with attempted murder. And he used a racial epithet right before he did it that indicated it was a hate crime. The increase in anti-Asian sentiment and violence against Asian Americans is something I take very seriously. It's something that scares me. Probably not as much as it should, because I have this false sense that we're in Vermont and everything's going to be okay, even when it isn't. But I understand, there is a part of me that says, well, maybe we should have a flag that says end racism or something like that. But my point is that, there's nobody's a bad person here. This is a really complex thing. This is a real issue. And so this conversation really has to happen. And I'm very in favor of the motion. And Krista Lee, we'll buy you a nice present at the end. Maybe a meal at one of the fine restaurants we have here in Williston. So that's my statement.
Any further discussion on the motion?
I would just like to add that, as part of this, I know the town is looking at their policies surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion and ongoing trainings, but I think that's integral, and to continue to look at ways in which the town can, become more equitable within its practices and within its language in policy writing and in hiring practices or whatever the case may be. But I think that that's also that they go hand in hand, and that needs to be considered as well.
If there's no other further discussion on the motion, Jeff?
One quick thing. Well said, Greta and Ted. Thank you. Ted, you brought up an interesting point, how to recognize what Krista Lee is doing. And I sure hope that sometime in maybe my lifetime, the concept of needing the Black Lives Matter mag won't be needed. I will feel comfortable that we no longer need to do that. And if and when that day comes, and I sure hope it does, Krista Lee, I hope you get the flag.
If there's no other further discussion, then all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That concludes the agenda for tonight for the public part, and the next part would be an executive session, should we choose to do that. If we choose to do that, we need a motion that's been suggested.
I'll move that premature public knowledge regarding a union contract matter would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage, and further move that we enter into executive session to discuss police union contract matter under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A, 1B of the Vermont statutes, and invite Police Chief Patrick Foley, Police Lieutenant Josh Moore, Finance Director Shirley Goodell-Lackey, and Town Manager Eric Wells to join.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are in executive session. We'll get downstairs and with all of our folks that have been invited.